In this work, we do see horrific things that have happened to people, but we also see individuals coming together to support one another, to humanize one's experience. Though it may be difficult, this does not define all of who you are, and that we're going to be with you. My name is Deanna Smith, and I am the Division Manager of Victim Services. Victim Services is the heart of the office, where dedicated staff provide services to witnesses of crime, victims of crime who have been injured and or suffered profound loss.
You're coming into someone's life that's typically one of their worst moments. The first moment I'm meeting a victim, it's typically by phone call. And what I will do to prep for that phone call is essentially to review the case. Not everything, but just at least go through the police report, just so I have background. Really, in that initial phone call, I am just asking them, is this a good time to talk? And then asking how they're doing. Do they have other supports to lean on, like family or friends? We are people that are a buffer for the criminal court process. Courts are kind of a beast of their own, and I can't imagine anyone going through that process without a buffer. Essentially, we're a liaison between prosecutors and victim witnesses.
A lot of victims, they have never been part of the criminal justice system before, and their first interaction with it is basically TV, like Law and Order and everything, and that is not the same. We help them, guide them through every step of the way to make them feel comfortable in a very uncomfortable situation. I think a lot of crime victims, one, they're nervous. Also, we don't meet people on their finest day. So sometimes they're scared to talk. They're also ashamed, they're in shock, they don't know where to start. And so when they have these questions like, well, I'll just wait. No, don't wait. Ask me all the questions, because we don't want you to go through this process, again, this very uncomfortable process, not knowing the process.
I'll never know what it's like to be exactly in their position, but certainly can do the best possible to just say, this is not an easy process. I cannot imagine what you've endured and what you will endure during this.
That this is going to be a long process. There's going to be times that you're going to have to repeat your story more than you would like. There are going to be times you see my number, you don't want to talk to me.
I'm here to kind of lay out the possibilities of how a case can resolve.
One of the other things that's really important that we have the conversations with victims about is the Minnesota sentencing guidelines. The sentencing guidelines is they rank every crime from a fleeing to a murder on a scale of 1 to 11. When you're sitting down talking to a victim, say, oh, what happened to you was a 4. It's always a 10. It's an 11 to everyone. And that can be from someone that had their credit card stolen to someone who's victimized.
Example, the criminal vehicular homicides. I know out of the gate, a presumptive max with no criminal history points is 48 months. You have a loss of life, and the max someone's looking at is 48 months, and they're only serving 2/3 of that. You get the jail credit. It just feels so low level. And so again, we just kind of fall back on, we're a bit bound to the sentencing guidelines. We're talking about someone that you've lost, and now we're talking about them in numbers. And that feels really sterile.
What's important to know is why the guidelines were brought about is to eliminate some disparities within the system. So everyone should be treated if they have a certain criminal history score and a certain offense that they committed. So it keeps the uniformity of the system. Is it a perfect tool? Absolutely not. Are there some cases that it really is frustrating to have? Absolutely. But it's our system's trying to do the best to treating everyone equally.
Relationship with the prosecutors, like they're the ones charging the decisions, they're the one ultimately making the decision on how the case moves forward, and also like, are the attorney in court for the state.
I am not the victim's lawyer, but I am required to, and I can't do my job well if I don't hear what they're saying. We are the attorney for the state, for the public, for everyone. And it's kind of an amorphous concept, but it makes a lot of sense because you want to have a global thinking in terms of outcomes on a case. And I always like to, with the support of the victim service specialist, if there's questions, I want to have the discussion.
They also think they can speak directly to the prosecutor. And it's like, no, like, where'd that go between? That's what we do for you.
One of the things as a prosecutor, I can't talk to a victim by myself because I could make myself a witness in my case. I always have to have a conduit. You needed someone to create that bridge with the prosecutor. And just to be honest, Like, not every prosecutor has the perfect bedside manner. They're people that are looking at a case, looking at the details, seeing how they're going to prove it. I think most of our prosecutors are very good at speaking with victims, but that is only because there's been so much work done up front by the victim service specialist that even allows those conversations. And like I said, there's a lot of really tough conversations we have to have. As hearings come, we find out what's going to happen if there's going to be an offer made. And that's usually when the attorney's going to start really talking with the victim. And they would set up communication through the victim service specialist.
Healing to me, there can be some of it during a case because some people might feel validated that a case is charged, it's moving forward. I feel like the true healing process, at least from what I've heard from victim survivors and working these cases, is not until the case is done. What'll happen is, I might have a hearing today with someone and the next one might not be for another month or two. And so you go in these lulls of just nothing, and then I surface the situation for them all over again. What I wish people would know is, I do care. Often I'm told, well, you're paid to be here, you work for a system that's broken. I'm not gonna argue that those things aren't true, but I do care. There's certainly cases and things that'll always sit with me.
I was changed because demographics, there are groups who don't trust the criminal justice system, which is valid, which is fair. And I did have a young victim who felt that way. She went through the process. The person was convicted. To get a text message from her thanking me and the prosecutors and saying, I never believed in the criminal justice process, but you guys made me believe again. And that's when I first started working here. And that sometimes when I have a hard day, I look back at that text message. Gosh, I look back at that text message and I'm like, that's who we do it for.
This is something that happened to you, nothing that you would ever ask for, and that you are not alone. There is help, and we're here.
My name is Jen White, and I am the Director of Community Affairs and Victim Services. We support this work from a leadership perspective because it is really challenging to navigate the criminal legal system, and our team provides that real hands-on support. A big part of community safety is taking care of our victims and our witnesses and making sure that they have the support that they need after suffering trauma or harm.